Forget what school told you. The pyramids weren't just built, they were engineered with something beyond belief. The Great Pyramid of Giza contains more than 2 million stone blocks, many of which weigh between 2 to 15 tons. But hidden deep inside the structure, in chambers and pressure-relieving zones, lie granite blocks that weigh up to 80 tons. These weren't sourced locally either. They were transported from Aswan, nearly 500 miles away. This detail alone flips the story of the pyramid's construction into something far more complex than just stacking bricks under the hot sun. One theory suggests the stones were dragged on sleds while workers poured water over the sand to reduce friction. That sounds clever, until you realize that the logistics of keeping those roots soaked across hundreds of miles makes the task almost impossible in the desert environment. Another theory proposes massive rolling logs, but there's no hard evidence of a forest industry capable of producing the millions of trees that would have been needed, and no ancient forests in the region. Some researchers believe the Nile was used to transport the stones by boat. That idea works for small blocks, but the 80-ton giants? Not so simple. You'd need a boat larger and more stable than anything archaeologists have found from that time. The math doesn't add up, and these blocks weren't just dropped at the base either. Some were raised more than 150 feet above ground level deep inside the pyramid's heart. Moving a block that size vertically with ropes, ramps, or brute strength challenges even the most ambitious builders today. That's where the mystery deepens. Engineers from the 21st century have admitted that recreating this feat without modern cranes or machines is nearly impossible. In fact, the construction of the king's chamber, where many of these 80-ton granite blocks are placed, is so precise that some say it resembles industrial assembly rather than ancient labor. This puzzle has led some fringe theorists to suggest there was lost knowledge or even assistance from somewhere else. While mainstream scholars stick to the sled and ramp explanation, alternative researchers point out that even if thousands of laborers were involved, the coordination, precision, and raw effort seem beyond what we'd expect from a Bronze Age society. Most people picture sand, sweat, and ramps when they think about pyramid construction. But a different theory turns all of that upside down. What if the Egyptians didn't haul those massive blocks up ramps, but floated them up through the pyramid itself? French architect Jean-Pierre Houdin proposed something revolutionary. According to him, the Great Pyramid wasn't built with external ramps. Instead, it used an internal spiral system, almost like a hidden water shaft or lock system, allowing workers to lift blocks gradually through the structure. Think of a canal system with rising water levels, only inside stone walls. There's evidence backing this up. Infrared scans and three-dimensional modeling revealed strange anomalies along the pyramid's internal structure. Passageways that seem to twist upward in a pattern that wouldn't be needed for tomb access or ventilation. They look more like functional channels. And recent muon scans, a modern technology that tracks particles through dense structures, showed spiral-like voids just under the casing blocks, lining up with Houdin's predictions. If this is true, then the pyramid may have been a massive machine, with water not just used around the base, but throughout the build. Floating blocks up chambers might sound far-fetched, but it's been done in other ancient cultures. And for heavy lifting without modern engines, water provides one of the oldest and smartest tricks around. This doesn't remove human effort from the equation, but it suggests that the builders weren't just strong, they were incredibly smart, using nature to their advantage in a way that we're only beginning to understand now. Ancient historians spoke of a hidden city buried beneath the sand, a place of pillars, halls, and passageways so complex it made the Great Pyramid seem simple. Herodotus, who visited Egypt more than 2,000 years ago, described a sprawling underground labyrinth near the pyramids. According to him, it had thousands of rooms, grand columns, and walls covered in carvings that could rival anything above ground. Modern archaeologists long treated this as myth, but in the last few decades, evidence has started to surface. At Hawara, near the pyramid of Amenemhat III, ground-penetrating radar revealed large rectangular voids underground. These formations don't match natural patterns. Some researchers believe they're the remains of this lost labyrinth, Herodotus's mysterious complex. What's more intriguing is the suggestion that these chambers could have been connected to the Great Pyramid's construction. Storage for tools, maps, or machines, a training site for masons, or perhaps a hidden command center for organizing the massive operation. Satellite scans have shown even more underground anomalies stretching across the Giza Plateau, yet access to some of these zones has been restricted, leading to endless speculation. Why would a pyramid, built to house a single pharaoh, need a city's worth of chambers beneath it? It's possible the pyramid was just the tip of a buried iceberg, a symbolic monument above a secret maze. If the labyrinth really exists, it could hold lost blueprints, experimental chambers, or even the remains of forgotten technology. Whatever's down there, it's not just sand and stone. Walk across the Giza Plateau and you'll notice something odd if you look closely at the stone. It's not the shape of the blocks, it's not the size either, it's the marks. Deep, smooth, perfectly linear striations, etched into granite and limestone surfaces as if by machines. Some run for inches, others stretch for meters. Mainstream archaeologists say these are the results of copper chisels and dolerite pounding stones. But engineers and stoneworkers from our time aren't buying it. They point out that copper is far too soft to leave such marks in granite, especially with that kind of consistency. And there's no evidence of the tools themselves, no massive piles of worn-out chisels or hammerheads. At several pyramid sites, you can find scoop-like grooves that curve with mathematical precision. Perfectly flat faces polished like glass. Parallel lines on massive blocks that look like they were made with industrial-grade grinding wheels. These features aren't random, they repeat. They follow geometric paths. They often appear in areas that were hidden from view, far from decoration. What kind of tools leave cuts this clean and materials this hard? Not hammers, not brute force. These don't resemble what we'd expect from ancient handcraft. They look manufactured, like something programmed to operate on tracks. Some cuts even show marks as if a rotary blade stopped mid-stroke, leaving behind a perfect arc, something extremely hard to do without precision instruments. These tool marks are the overlooked fingerprints of something advanced. Whether it was lost technology, forgotten techniques, or something even stranger, the evidence is carved into stone. Literally. We still don't know how these shapes were made, but they weren't made casually. Whoever cut them didn't just want to move stones. They wanted to leave a message, one we haven't fully deciphered yet. Tucked into an ancient granite quarry in Aswan lies a massive clue, an unfinished obelisk still attached to the bedrock. If completed, it would have stood over 130 feet tall and weighed more than 1,100 tons. That's more than the weight of 2 fully loaded Boeing 747s. And it's just lying there, half-carved, cracked, and abandoned. The obelisk is often called the smoking gun of ancient Egyptian stonework. It gives us a rare look at how they may have quarried their stone. The cuts around its base are smooth and narrow. You can see channels and notches that suggest removal techniques, but there's one problem. There's no sign of how they were actually made. No copper chisels, no pounding stones, and no reasonable explanation for how precise the trench cuts are. If they were using dolerite pounding balls, as some claim, the marks should be rough, chaotic, uneven. Instead, we see long, straight lines. Smooth tool paths, clean angles. It's as if the stone was worked with guided machinery rather than handheld tools. The obelisk's scale is another mystery. Lifting it, if finished, would have required a system far beyond what traditional Egyptology acknowledges. The ancient Egyptians never left behind cranes or levers large enough for the job. And the fact that they attempted something so massive only to abandon it suggests they either overestimated their abilities or lost access to something they had before. This isn't just a failed project, it's a snapshot frozen in time. A window into ancient ambitions and maybe ancient technologies that haven't resurfaced since. Inside the heart of the Great Pyramid lies the King's Chamber, built entirely of rose granite blocks. That alone is impressive, but what really stuns engineers and scientists today isn't just the material, it's the precision. Several surfaces inside this room are so flat, they've been measured to within 1/100th of a millimeter. That's not just good for ancient standards, it's good for aerospace standards. Granite, as you might know, is notoriously hard to shape. Achieving this level of flatness today would take diamond tools, controlled environments, and laser-guided equipment. Yet, somehow these blocks were carved over 4,500 years ago, using what we're told were copper chisels and stone hammers. The numbers just don't match the tools. The floor itself contains massive blocks weighing dozens of tons, laid so evenly that you can actually slide a credit card between the seams in some areas, but not in others. The ceiling is lined with even larger slabs, fitted so tightly and so straight that they hold firm without any mortar at all. This isn't decorative. It's not symbolic. This is functionally precise. So the question isn't just how, it's why. Why make a room this exact if it was just a burial chamber? Why align surfaces so finely in a pitch-black chamber sealed for eternity? Some folks believe the king's chamber served a purpose far beyond burial. Maybe it was a resonance chamber, maybe it was part of a machine, or maybe it was built by people, or honestly something, with skills we haven't yet rediscovered. The more you examine it, the more it looks like a control room, not a tomb. In 2018, a team of physicists made a strange discovery. Using electromagnetic modeling, they found that the Great Pyramid actually focuses electromagnetic energy. Specifically, it resonates with certain radio frequencies and concentrates that energy into its internal chambers. There's no copper wiring, no circuits, just stone. But somehow it behaves like a tuned antenna. And this isn't sci-fi, it was published in peer-reviewed research. The scientists didn't claim aliens or lost tech, but they did confirm that the pyramid interacts with energy in measurable, focused ways. The king's chamber and other voids inside the pyramid correspond to nodes where energy is most concentrated. It's like the structure is guiding the waves with intent. How could a pile of limestone and granite be so well tuned? Why would a tomb need to absorb and redirect electromagnetic waves? Some point to this as evidence the pyramid was never just a tomb. Maybe it was a power plant. Maybe it was a kind of frequency device, resonating with Earth's natural fields. What's especially odd is the alignment. The pyramid is aligned almost perfectly with true north, not magnetic north. And its dimensions, when measured in ancient units, seem to encode knowledge of Earth's geometry, including the curvature of the planet and the speed of light. Is this a coincidence? A lucky accident? If so, it's a stack of coincidences taller than the pyramid itself. When structures built thousands of years ago can still affect energy in ways we don't fully understand, it's hard not to ask, what did they really know? It looks like a clay jar, but inside this humble vessel found near Baghdad is a copper cylinder, an iron rod, and signs of acid residue. When assembled and tested, it produces voltage. This is the Baghdad battery, an artifact that predates the invention of modern electricity by more than 2,000 years. It wasn't found in Egypt, but its implications reach straight into the Great Pyramid. Why would this matter? Because some believe the Great Pyramid was never a tomb. They claim it was a massive power generator, built to harvest and amplify natural energy from the Earth. If small clay jars could generate current, what could you do with an enormous pyramid aligned with magnetic fields, loaded with quartz-bearing granite, and designed with internal chambers that focus electromagnetic frequencies? Supporters of this theory point to the Grand Gallery as a kind of power corridor. The King's Chamber? A resonance box. The missing golden capstone at the top? Possibly once used to conduct or focus energy. And the granite blocks inside the pyramid contain quartz, a mineral known to respond to pressure by producing electrical current. That's not accidental, that's engineering. Even the strange shafts that lead nowhere might not be vents, they could be waveguides, similar to what's used in modern transmission systems. While mainstream science doesn't embrace this theory, the combination of materials, design, and alignment makes one thing clear. The pyramid isn't just a stack of stones. Something's going on inside it. Whether it powered anything or not, it shows a level of understanding that we're still chasing. A giant machine hiding in plain sight. Egypt is famous for its hieroglyphs, tombs, temples, walls, covered with scenes of gods, kings, ceremonies, and scripts. But not inside the Great Pyramid. Not one wall inside the structure contains a single hieroglyph. Not one decorated panel, not a single carved symbol to mark its supposed function as a royal tomb. This absence has raised questions for decades. Every other royal burial site in Egypt is filled with iconography, inscriptions, and elaborate storytelling. But the most iconic structure in Egyptian history? Completely bare, almost sterile. Some say that the pyramid was looted and the inscriptions destroyed, but stone can't be wiped clean that easily. Others claim the decorations were painted, not carved, and simply faded. But paint doesn't cover 100-ton granite blocks. This wasn't an oversight, it looks deliberate. This has led to a radical idea. What if the pyramid wasn't originally built by the Egyptians we know? Some believe it predates dynastic Egypt entirely, constructed by a much earlier civilization whose identity was lost to time. The Egyptians may have inherited it, studied it, and even tried to replicate it, but didn't build it. Even the inner design supports this view. The layout doesn't match traditional tomb architecture. No mummies have ever been found inside, no grave goods, just stone chambers, shafts, and sealed doors. It feels less like a place of burial and more like a device. If the Great Pyramid wasn't a tomb and wasn't Egyptian in origin, then it rewrites everything we think we know about history. and that possibility has made many researchers very uncomfortable. Deep inside the Great Pyramid, there are narrow shafts, so small that no human could ever crawl through them. They rise at precise angles from the king's and queen's chambers, piercing through the stone like tiny telescopes. For years they were called air vents, but they don't open to the surface and they weren't needed for ventilation. Then came the shocking discovery. In the 1990s, astronomers mapped the shaft's angles and discovered that they aligned almost perfectly with major stars. One shaft pointed toward Orion's belt, another to Sirius. Others aligned with stars important in ancient Egyptian cosmology. But the precision is so exact, some think it goes beyond symbolic design. Here's where it gets interesting. The constellation Orion was associated with Osiris, god of the underworld, and Sirius was linked to Isis. These weren't just religious references, they were considered actual destinations for the soul. But, the shaft design implies a much more technical role. The angles don't match religious murals, they match astronomical math. Some believe the pyramid acted like a stellar compass. Others go further and suggest these shafts served as guides, pathways aimed at the sky for reasons we still don't understand. And that raises a question: if the pyramid points to the stars with laser-like precision, was it made for those who came from the stars? Mainstream scholars say no, but the shafts are real, the alignments are real, and the mystery still sits under 6 million tons of stone, waiting for someone to explain it fully. In ancient Sumerian tablets, there's a word that keeps showing up: Anunnaki. These were described as powerful beings who descended from the heavens, bringing knowledge, tools, and order. According to some interpretations, they weren't gods in a spiritual sense, they were physical beings with advanced capabilities. Now here's the link: many believe the pyramids were not just built by humans, but with help from these visitors. In Sumerian texts, there's talk of massive stone structures built as stairways to the sky. The ziggurats of Mesopotamia were the prototypes. Some say the Great Pyramid was the final stage. The perfect alignment, impossible stonework, and star-focused architecture have all been pointed to as signs of something beyond early Bronze Age engineering. Some sculptures and carvings found across Egypt and Mesopotamia depict tall humanoid figures carrying mysterious rods or wearing strange headgear. A few even show figures floating above or descending from what look like tiered platforms, stair-like constructions that resemble modern launch pads more than ceremonial altars. While mainstream historians call this speculation, it's worth noting how many ancient cultures share the same theme: advanced knowledge coming from above. Whether it was metaphor or memory, something made ancient builders look to the sky not just for inspiration, but for guidance. For centuries, the Great Pyramid looked like it had given up all its secrets. But in recent years, that changed. Using non-invasive drone mapping and particle scanning technology, specifically muon tomography, scientists uncovered something astonishing: a hidden void above the Grand Gallery and another mysterious cavity behind the original entrance. These spaces have remained completely sealed for over 4,000 years. These aren't small cracks or air gaps. The larger void is roughly 100 feet long and shaped like a corridor. It sits right above one of the pyramid's most well-traveled internal paths, but there's no visible entrance to reach it. The smaller cavity near the entrance appears to be a tunnel, possibly connecting to even more unknown chambers. Researchers still don't know what's inside. It could be an empty space used for structural reasons, or it could be a sealed archive, a chamber holding something completely unexpected. And since no one has physically entered them yet, theories are flying. Could this be the legendary Hall of Records that ancient texts speak of? Could it contain lost blueprints, artifacts, or information from a civilization before the pharaohs? Even the Scanned Pyramids team admits, these discoveries open more questions than they answer. We now know that the pyramid still hides secrets. It's not just a monument of the past, it's a mystery still unfolding. When the Great Pyramid was first completed, it didn't look like the weathered stepped structure we see today. It was wrapped in smooth, white casing stones made of highly polished Tura limestone. These stones fit together so seamlessly that the entire pyramid would have reflected sunlight like a mirror. It must have looked otherworldly, visible for miles. But now most of those casing stones are gone. Many were stripped away in later centuries and repurposed for buildings in Cairo. Only a few remain, mostly at the base. And here's the part that still baffles experts. The finish on the remaining stones is incredibly smooth, almost machined. You can feel it. You can see the reflection. Some edges are so straight they rival laser-cut surfaces. The precision is unnatural for the tools we've been told were used. Copper chisels can't produce that finish. And the uniformity across thousands of stones suggests something more than hand tools and manpower. No inscriptions. No decorations. Just smooth, perfect geometry. Almost as if the casing wasn't for beauty, but for function. Some think the casing stones played a role in energy collection or distribution. Others think they served as a symbolic link to the sun itself, turning the pyramid into a beacon, not just a tomb. Whatever their true purpose, these stones weren't just ornamental, they were a statement, and their removal stripped more than just beauty, it erased part of the puzzle. Scattered across the Libyan desert near the Egyptian border lies a mysterious green-yellow glass. It covers hundreds of square miles and is purer than anything modern furnaces can produce. Known as Libyan desert glass, it formed under extreme heat, so intense it fused the sand into glass in an instant. What caused it? That's still debated. Some say a meteorite exploded in the atmosphere. Others argue it was a direct impact. But there's no crater. And the heat required, over 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit, is hard to explain without a violent, targeted burst of energy. Now here's the twist, a large piece of this glass was found in King Tutankhamun's burial jewelry. That suggests the ancient Egyptians knew about it. Did they just stumble across it? Or did they witness whatever event created it? Fringe theorists propose that a form of energy release, possibly connected to the pyramid itself, could have triggered the event. Maybe the pyramids weren't just collecting energy. Maybe something once overloaded or misfired. It might sound wild, but the glass is real, the temperature was real. And the connection to Egyptian royalty puts it right in the middle of our story. Whether natural or not, it proves one thing: something powerful happened in the desert. And we still don't fully understand what. That's about it. And what do you think? How were the pyramids actually built? Share your theories in the comments. For more useful information, watch other videos.